Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Odoo Live. My name is Todd Farnham, Community Manager here at San Francisco Odoo. And joining me today is Connor Frederick, Business Advisor and Resident Expert of Odoo, here to talk about Intro to Accounting, account receivables, account payables, and much more.
Okay, so today's presentation is going to take about 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of that for some Q&A. So throughout the presentation, we will be answering your questions in the chat box to the right, and we will also be demonstrating some of your functional questions in real time at the end of each section.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Connor. And as always, I think he mentioned if you want to revisit this link at any time or review this, just use the link that you used to get here. And as well, if you have any questions, mention them in the chat box, and we'll be answering them at the end during the Q&A. And just as well, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to find out about more webinars. We have English-produced webinars every Wednesday at this same time, 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. So without further ado, I think we can jump into it.
Great. Thanks, Todd. So today we're going to be doing the Intro to Accounting. We're going to go over some of the accounts receivables, accounts payables, and some of the end of fiscal year processes. And then at the end of the presentation, we will hold a Q&A session. So let me just get this slide out of here, and we can go ahead and get into the presentation. So what we're looking at here is the main Odoo dashboard. You've got your different applications, but for today's presentation, we are primarily going to be focusing on accounting. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. And you can see on the accounting dashboard, we have a few different journals here. So these journals essentially represent the different to-do lists for your accountant or CPA or whoever is taking care of your financials. So each of these different boxes represents a journal, and each of these journals represents a different transaction type for your business operations. So this first journal right here, we have customer invoices. So this is primarily going to be handling the accounts receivable for your company. So any payments coming into your business from customers or anyone like that. Now over here you have your vendor bills. So these are working in a similar fashion, just the opposite, I guess, going outbound rather than inbound. So any payments that you are making to your suppliers or vendors for your business operations. Down here you have your bank account. So this is where you will be able to reconcile any payments from your vendors or customers and match them up with your invoices or vendor bills. And then you have a Visa card right here. I've created this journal myself just to handle payments to vendors. And then a cash journal down here, essentially representing a petty cash box or a wallet that you would have in your office just to monitor some of the cash. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do when setting up Odoo is go ahead and set up your chart of accounts. You can do so by coming to this advisor and clicking chart of accounts. Odoo has this already preset configured for you straight out of the box. However, you can tailor it to your own business's preferences to really make it just fit your business flow. I'm just going to go ahead and click into one just to show you what it looks like inside of these accounts. You can press this edit button and see a few different field lines. So the field lines with the bold underscore mean that these are mandatory fields that you do need to fill out. And of course this is editable. The code does come preset, but you can change this nomenclature to whatever you would like for your business. You can also rename this account to whatever fits. In this instance though, we are going to just leave it as account receivable, and you can change the account type as well. So there are quite a few different types of accounts. Today we're primarily going to be focusing just on the receivables, payables, and a little bit on the credit card as well. One of the most important aspects of this page right here, though, is this Allow Reconciliation button right here. You do want to ensure that this is checked off for your receivables and payables so that when you do come to match the payments to those bills and invoices, you will be able to have a double entry and make sure that it is GAAP compliant, and also just ensuring that you don't have any errors within your financials. Before I leave this page, I do want to also note on the right-hand side, this is showing you essentially how this account is going to affect your statements. So you can see this accounts receivable is going to flow directly into your net profit in your P&L statement, and it's also going to flow into your balance sheet into the plus net profit under net assets. So let's go back to that chart of accounts. I do want to point out that you are able to filter down to, if you ever want to check any of the accounts to see which ones allow reconciliation, to make sure that you don't have any errant accounts running with that reconciliation that you don't want to, you can use this filter button, simply choose allow reconciliation with the condition set as is true, and apply it, and you'll be able to filter down to see which accounts allow for this. In this instance, we do have accounts receivable, payable, liquidity transfers, and reserve and profit loss account. We'll go over a little bit later why we have these two on here as well, but in this instance, it does make sense to have these 4 accounts tagged with that reconciliation. So now that we've got the chart of accounts set up, we can go ahead and go back to that dashboard, and I'm going to show you how to configure a new journal if you ever need to do so for your business. So if you want to create a new journal, just simply come up to configuration, come down to journals under the accounting, and you can see all of your existing journals listed out right here. Again, these do list out different transaction types for your business to kind of segment all of the different transactions that you're going to do. So if you want to create a new one, you can simply press create right here and fill in the necessary information. Again, you can see, similar to the chart of accounts field, there are 3 underscored bolded lines. These are mandatory fields that you must enter information into if you'd like to create this account. So you need to create a journal name, select a journal type, and provide a short code for that. We can check out one of my existing journals just to see how I have set it up. You can see we have given it a name, chosen a type, and even set up a short code for it. Now this default debit account and default credit account field right here, while it isn't mandatory, it is imperative to fill this out if you would like to actually receive or make payments through your account or through this journal type. Also, in the advanced settings, you can decide what type of debit methods and payment methods you would like to accept through this journal. And even going further into that, you can even synchronize your bank account with this journal type by providing an account number and choosing what bank you belong to. And you can use that online synchronization essentially to handle your bank statements every 4 hours, so you don't have to do that at month's end close, which will save you quite a bit of time over the course of your operations. So now that you've seen how to create a new journal, let's continue the setup for our accounting practices by creating some customers. So if you want to create a customer, you can do so simply by coming up to the Sales tab up here, coming down to Customers, and clicking in. Now I already have created a couple of customers, so we can just show you what is the necessary information to configure in regards to the accounting practices. Now most of these fields are going to be not entirely necessary. However, this invoicing column right here is going to be extremely pertinent to handle. So primarily this accounting entries aspect right here. You really want to make sure that you have the correct accounts linked with your customers as well as your vendors, so that whenever you do business with them, whether it be creating a customer invoice or a vendor bill, it will link to the correct account and provide a journal entry. And similarly, or not similarly, sorry about that, but over here in the Sales and Purchases tab, I do want to show you the only difference between a customer and a vendor within the system is this simple checkbox right here. So you do want to ensure that this is correctly set, that if you have a customer, you have that checked off, and as well, if they're a vendor, you have this one checked off. So it is pretty basic to set this up. The rest of the information is kind of up to your choosing what you want to fill in. But if in order to get the accounting to work properly, making sure that you have this aspect for the account setup is imperative. So let's go ahead and save this customer, and we can go back to that customer page. Now if you want to set up a vendor, it is starkly similar to what we just did with this customers. You just simply need to choose the Purchases tab, come down to Vendors, and you'll have a list of your vendors. If you'd like to see all of your contacts at any point in time, you can simply just remove this Vendors filter from this advanced search bar, and you'll have a list of all of your different contacts within the system. So employees, customers, vendors, anyone. You can always filter that back down very simply by opening up the filter bar and choosing who you'd like to segment. So we can choose a vendor now, and we can just ensure that the invoicing column has been set up correctly before we move on. We can see that the accounts receivable are taken care of right here. The accounts payable are linked as well. And under the sales and purchases tab, we have is a vendor correctly set up. So now that we have done this, we can go ahead and handle creating a new product, which is the next step in configuring your accounting essentially to be able to handle some of those financials. So we're going to go ahead and come back to that sales tab and go to sellable products. And again, I have created a few products already at this point in time so that we can go through this a little bit quicker. I do want to just show you how I have configured that product. Now, most of this information isn't going to really matter too much in terms of your accounting, similar to those customers and vendors. Now, the invoicing column, again, is going to be where the important aspect is actually handled. So you can see under the income account, we have the chart of accounts product sales linked with that, and under the expense account, we have expenses linked. So that way, whenever we make a sale for this product, it will hit the correct income account, and similarly, whenever we make a purchase for this product, it will be expensed correctly as well. So that is the most important field to ensure that you have set up correctly. Outside of that, none of this is really super important to have configured for this lesson today. So let's go ahead and save this. And I do also want to just briefly mention before moving on that if you have a product category set up for a configured for multiple products, so you have them listed under product category, you do only need to set that up on that category, and it will make that effect change. It will change the product, sorry, so that all the products are affected by that, so you don't have to set up each and every product like this. It's really helpful in certain instances where you maybe have a couple hundred or even a couple thousand products under the same product category, and it'd be very tiresome en route to actually have to do that for each and every product to go through and set up the correct income and expense account on them. So that is why if you have product categories, you can take advantage of that. It'll make your life quite a bit easier. So now that we've got this set up, I do want to summarize before we move forward what we've already covered today. So we've gone ahead and set up the chart of accounts in the advisor setting. We've set up a new journal type, and we've also created some customers, some vendors, and some products. So now that we've taken care of this, I do want to move on to an accounts receivable workflow. And essentially, the accounts receivable is going to be handled through customer invoices, of course. So if you want to check out your customer invoices, you can simply come up to your sales column or sales tab and choose customer invoices. This is going to give you a list of all your different customer invoices, whether they be held in the draft state, in open state, or in a paid and fully finished state. You can also find your different invoices directly through this customer invoices journal. So if we'd like to see the ones that are awaiting payments, so open invoices, we can simply click in here and it'll have them segmented out to just show the open ones. And similarly, if we want to see which ones are in draft statement needing a validation to be carried out, you can simply click into the awaiting or invoices to validate right here and have just the drafts. And you can remove this draft filter from the advanced search bar and again be able to see all of your different invoices. So I want to go ahead and create a new invoice for you so that you can see what is the necessary fields to populate. So when you're creating an invoice, you can see the customer line is bolded, so you do need to choose a customer, and this is because of those accounts linked to that customer. And we also do need to choose a product. And when we click into that product line, you can see the description and the account, quantity, and unit price are all bolded, so mandatory fields. This account field is going to be the most important field, really, because this is going to be the income or expense account related to that product that we're going to select. So let's go ahead and choose a product. We chose the Panasonic GH4. We're going to sell it to the customer, Deloitte. We don't need to set an invoice date. In this instance, you can see that field line is gray. It is not black, so it's not a mandatory field. We can check this other info column very quickly, and we can see there's no journal entry created yet at this point in time. So let's just go ahead and save this. We can check that. We can see everything looks about the same. And now, once we validate this, the system will create a journal entry for this invoice. So when we check in that other info column, we can see that journal entry right there for invoice 2017-0010. So we can click into there and we can see the accounts receivable right here debiting and the tax received and product sales crediting our income account. If you look at this as if it's a T-chart, you can see that they are aligned on both sides. So this is kind of giving you that double entry, which really just stays compliant with GAAP. Now we can check the reconciled entries, but it won't yet be reconciled because we don't have a bank statement yet with the payment for this invoice. So once this is fully paid, we will have that reconciliation, and this is really why you want to have reconciliation checked off on receivables and payables for this instance right here, just to be able to really be able to reconcile this, get a matching number between them, and just have that insurance that everything has been taken care of properly. So let's go ahead and follow the breadcrumbs back into that original invoice, and we can now register the payment on it. So when we register the payment, it brings up the payment wizard right here. So we can choose multiple different journals to make that payment transaction with. In this instance, we're going to use our bank, or to receive that payment, sorry. So we're going to receive that payment directly into our bank. It makes it the simplest because if they were going to pay us with a check or with cash or anything like that, it would end up going into our bank regardless. So it's just kind of shortening the process by one step. So let's go ahead and just validate this payment. Now we can see it is marked as paid. And when we go back into that other info, we can follow that journal entry and check that reconciliation, and we should see a bank statement now. Now we have a bank payment matching that invoice with a matching number right here. And again, if you look at this as if it's a T-chart, you can see debit and credit are both aligned. So everything is fully reconciled in this regard. So now we can go ahead and go back to the dashboard. Now before we move on to before we move on to accounts payable, I do want to show you very quickly aged receivables. So this is how you're going to be able to look up to see if there are any outstanding payments that you're waiting from your customers. So you can simply come into the reporting tab and come down under business statements to aged receivables. And this is going to show you all of the different customers that have outstanding payments for you. So this first column here is going to show the payments that aren't quite due yet. The second column is for the next month. The third column is the following month, and so on and so forth. You can see all of the different payments, and you can even use this drop-down tab to actually check out the exact invoices or vendor bills, depending if you're looking at aged receivables or payables, to actually find out which invoice is still owed. And you can click directly into that invoice and even register that payment directly from here, which is a very nice feature about the system. It just works in a very linear fashion so that you can work efficiently. So let's just go ahead and just register this payment so that we no longer have to be waiting on our money from camp to camp. Now when we go back into that aged receivable, if we go ahead and refresh the page, we can see camp to camp is no longer shown on the aged receivable page because they have now paid us that $4,000 that was overdue. So now we can go back to the dashboard and handle some of the accounts payable workflow. So we're going to go over vendor bills in this instance, and it is going to work very similar to how we just handled the customer invoices. So if you want to ever check out your vendor bills, you can simply click under the purchases, come into vendor bills. This is going to have a list of all of your different open, draft, and paid vendor bills. Again, you can also check all of your draft and open payments directly through the vendor bill journal by simply clicking in the payments to do to check your open ones, or one draft bill to see which bill is still in a draft statement. And you can, of course, remove that draft statement to view all of your different bills. In this instance, let's go ahead and create a new bill. I want to show you how you can set this up. It is very similar to what we just did with the invoice. However, in this regard, I am going to actually only log a partial payment. So one thing to notice that is very different about the payables rather than the receivables is the account type that is linked with it. if you remember when we were doing the accounts receivables, the account 200,000 for product sales was linked here, and now we have 220,000 for expenses linked here. So that just shows that rather than hitting the income statement, it's going to hit our expenses when we purchase this product, and it creates the journal entry. So let's go ahead and validate this. And we can see in the other info, we now have a journal entry for that vendor bill. Now I'm going to go ahead and register a payment, and I'm not going to pay for the full amount. I'm going to do a partial payment. I do want to show you how you can do so with a check. So generally speaking, you have two options when you're choosing your banking journal. Depending on how you have it configured, you'll either have manual or check. Manual is essentially a wire transfer, and check is of course a check. So let's go ahead and choose check. For the payment amount, let's choose 200, and we're going to validate. Now you can see it is still left open with a remaining balance of $202.50. However, there is a payment for $200, and you can see all of the information regarding that payment right there. If you'd like to actually check out that check, you can simply come up to purchases. Save this first. Come up to purchases and choose payments. And you can see the $200 check that we just sent to Lululemon. If you'd like to print that check, you can simply click into that checkbox right here and print. And you can print the check on the top, middle, or bottom of the page. And this is assuming that you already do have checks ready to be printed within your printer. So I can show you what that's going to look like. You can configure this to look, however, really meets your needs for your business. But this is essentially what that's going to look like out of the box. So we can close that, and we can go ahead and go back into that vendor, and we can log another payment on it. So let's go ahead and register another payment. This time for the full amount, we're going to validate it. Now we can see it is marked as paid. And when we check the other info, we can go ahead and go into that journal entry and see that everything has been reconciled once again. This time it has been expensed rather than income. And we can check that reconciliation with the two corresponding payments. One, the check for $200, and the other, a wire transfer for $202.50, and then the corresponding credit for the vendor bill itself. So now that you've gone ahead and seen how to handle some of the accounts payable, I do want to show you, similar to the aged receivables, the aged payables. So this is just going to be all of your different bills that are outstanding. So any vendor that you do owe money to as of today or within the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or so on, you can find in this area. And again, very much similar to how we did it in the receivables, you can use this drop-down tab to open it up to see exactly which bill and what amount you owe. And you can click directly in and register the payment if you would like directly through here. Or you can continue to wait on it, depending on what your relationship is with your vendor. So next thing I do want to show is how to handle the reconciling of some bank statements. So in order to do so, you would need to oftentimes create a new bank statement. If you've already created a bank statement, you can create a new one, import one, or even use the synchronization with online that we briefly touched on a moment ago. So there are a few different ways to do so. You would need to open up this More column right here and choose under View Bank Statements. So you can create a bank statement manually just by filling in the line items for the income coming in and the expenses going out. However, you do not need to do so if you don't want to create it manually each and every time. You can do an import if you have your information in a CSV or Excel file. And I believe Odoo also accepts QIF files if you do receive those from your bank, which are like Quicken information files, I believe. So you can also do it in the third way, which I briefly showed earlier, which is held under the journals. You will need to set up your bank in the bank account, and configure it with the online synchronization. And this will give you an updated bank statement every 4 hours. It'll ping your bank. So it is something that is very nice because it will allow you to really keep your books up to date, far more so than if you're doing it at month's end. So we can go ahead and come back. If you want to actually reconcile any items within the system, it is very easy to do so. We can show you that in this bank journal right here. So essentially the way it works is the system will set up different partners and have those journal items linked to it. So whether it be an invoice, a vendor bill, anything like that, and then the corresponding bank payment. So if I know you will be seeing certain items in blue and certain ones in gray. So the gray ones essentially are signifying that they are still open. So they're not fully paid yet. So by reconciling them, it would create a journal entry by trying to reconcile an unpaid vendor bill with a bank statement. And if it's in blue, it does mean it has been fully paid at that point, which means you can reconcile it and be done with it. So as you can see down here, you've got an invoice linked with a bank statement, both $575 on the debit and credit side. We can simply reconcile this. This is fully finished, and we can see now we have reconciled 1 out of 3. And Deloitte, similar to right here, we can go ahead and choose this. It's an open balance, so we can go ahead and create an expense account for this and reconcile it. And we can always just choose through and find the counterpart if that's how you'd like to do so, or you can even select a partner to filter only based upon invoices or vendor bills that you have done with them. And you can filter down upon the different bank statements simply by typing in whatever information you would like. And that it's pretty simple how to actually handle a lot of these different reconciliations, and it really is going to make your life a lot easier just because this is something that would take quite a bit of time without the system being able to handle this kind of in an automated sense for you. So now that we've shown you how to do reconciliation with the bank, I do also want to show you how you can transfer money within your system. So if you are making payments on your Visa card to vendor bills and you'd like to reconcile those payments by maybe transferring some money from your bank to have that reconciliation happen, you can do so by simply clicking into the More column on your bank journal, choosing Internal Transfer, and just creating a transfer between your bank and your Visa journal. You can choose the amount that you'd like to send. And you can look at that journal item, and you're going to see why we have liquidity transfers set as a reconciled item within your chart of accounts. This is helping you reconcile that transfer between your 2 bank journals. So as you can see, the liquidity transfer has been credited for $1,000 on this side, debited for $1,000 on the bank from the transfer from bank, and then from the transfer to Visa, it's got $1,000 credited, whereas the liquidity transfer for that has the debit for $1,000. So it matches the corresponding transfer between the banks so that you can ensure that you have the double entry and reconcile all of that information. If you'd like to reconcile any items within your bank, you can simply open that up, and you can see a transfer from bank that we did earlier and for a vendor bill for $1,500. And we can simply, we can simply choose that corresponding counterpart and reconcile that information. It's very simple to do so within the system. Now the last thing I do want to show you today is how to end the fiscal year within the system. So this is a fairly basic thing to do. You just need to come up to the reporting, check your balance sheet, and obviously in this instance my earnings are a little bit off because I have been playing around with this. Your current year earnings and retained earnings should be a match within the system, so if they are not, you can do a transfer with your capital by simply coming to Advisor and creating a journal entry. But before I do so, I do also want to show you how you can set a lock date, so you can set a closing date for your fiscal year. If you want to do that, you can come to the configuration, go into settings, and come down to accounting reporting. And you can set the last day of your fiscal year and even set a lock date and a lock date for non-advisors. So an advisor is essentially the highest user access right within the system. And if you want to actually edit any of those user access rights, you can do so by coming into the settings, managing access rights, and of course in most databases you are going to have a list of employees here. I am the only employee in this database, but when you click into that, you can see that there are a few different access rights that you can alter at this point. I only have a few applications installed, so as you can see though, on the accounting and finance, I have an advisor level access right, and billing being the lowest, accountant being the middle, and advisor being the highest. So we're just going to leave that on advisor. Go ahead and save that. And now let's go ahead and just show you how you can go ahead and create a transfer to get your balance sheet to be closed out. So you just simply come into advisor, open journal entries. You can see I've already done a few different journal entries on my own. We can leave this as a miscellaneous operation. However, if you were using it for this use case, you probably would want to create a journal for end of year closing, something along those lines. So let's choose the accounts. We're going to choose the capital account, and then also we are choosing the undistributed profits and losses. So you would just need to debit the correct amount and credit the correct amount to get that to correlate with the number that you have in the balance sheet and get it to zero out. So that's essentially all we have prepared for you today. We will have more in-depth accounting webinars coming in the future to go a little bit more granular in regards to the reconciliation and some of the other features that we offer within the system.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Connor. I guess we can now jump into the Q&A. And yeah, as he did mention, we will be doing dynamic financial reports at the end of October. That's one of the things we'll be working on. So now let's field some questions. So Kyle Kasajian asked, is there a way to choose the account and analytical account per transaction with the vendor via the PO?
Yes, you can do so. You just need to set up some of those analytic accounts. I could actually show you that
Sure.
outside of this webinar. That might be a more beneficial way to do so. If you want to email me, Kyle, I think we could schedule some time and I can give you a little demonstration on that.
Cool. Yeah, and actually we have Connor's Acuity link listed in the description, so if you'd like to get more information, schedule a demo with him, please click on that link. Cool. And we had another one from Hiren Rival. How does this work with different currencies?
You are able to set up multi-currency within the system so that you can work with multinational companies, accept payments in euros and have them converted to dollars or whatever currency that you are using. So
awesome. And with that same question, or similarly related, would the ledger show the different currencies?
I believe the ledger will report based on whatever currency you have set up for your company as the main currency.
That makes sense. Cool.
And you can, to interrupt, but you can also have the system automatically do the exchange rates for you on the different currencies that you're accepting within the system. You just have to set up that API, but that is integrated within the system.
Awesome. And now let me think if I have some more questions. I probably know the answer is no, but it's an interesting question regardless. Nuraldine asked if we had any plans to add cryptocurrencies to our
I don't have any information regarding that. It would be an interesting thing to add into the system for sure, especially with all of the hype being generated behind Bitcoin and all of the other cryptocurrencies at this point. So maybe in the future, but at this point in time, it's not in development. So
yeah, good question. Now, I think you kind of answered this question, but I just had a few of my own. Let me see if anyone else has asked questions. Actually, we do. We've got a couple more. How can we get the vendor balance to show it to the auditor at the end of the year? Sounds like that's...
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that one. If you want to email me that question, we can go over it outside of this webinar, but in terms of right now, I'm not going to go into that detail.
Okay. Cool. And that was from Digitouch. Now, another question from that I was thinking about was, Connor, would we be able to maybe, like, let's say you received an invoice via email or a physical copy, and then you scanned it. Is there a way that you could attach that to, like, the invoice or, like, your information inside of the system to just, like, kind of have a physical reference to it?
So you can attach a PDF down here in this chatter area. And by doing so, you would have a attachment file up here so that you can actually keep track of that PDF with that invoice or vendor bill or whatever document you're looking to keep track of.
Perfect. That's my major question. Let me see if there's that shows. Okay, Jeremiah, I think a pretty straightforward question. Can you print an invoice that shows the amount a customer paid on it?
Yep, you can print right here. And you can see the amount paid directly right there.
All right, cool. Yeah. It's nice and straightforward. Let's see if there's anything else. So I think you kind of answered this question, but would you mind just quickly going over, how do I know if someone owes me money?
The easiest way to check if anyone owes you money would simply be coming up to the reporting column or reporting tab and coming into aged receivables. You'll be able to see all of the different companies and delineate which ones owed you in which periods. And based on those periods, which invoices are corresponding to those outstanding payments. And if you owe anyone money, you can also do the same in the opposite by simply looking into the aged payables.
Perfect. Well, I think that's pretty much all of our questions for today. As Connor mentioned, you can contact him directly with his information below if you have additional questions. And then if you have any general questions, if you want to suggest a webinar topic, you can email us at webinars@odoo.com. And we'll make sure that we get to those questions as quick as we can. And don't forget to subscribe and like our page when you get the chance.
Awesome. Yeah, just as Todd said, if you have any questions, shoot them over to me, cfr@odoo. If you'd like to schedule a demo with me, you can also do so with the link provided. And
Perfect.
Thank you to everyone who came out today to take a look into our accounting system.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And, as mentioned before, if you guys want to review this webinar at any time, you can just use the link above to review it. This is a live webinar, but it also is recorded as well. And on top of that, we have new webinars coming out all of the time. So make sure to check out events@odoo.com for more information. And you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to find out more updates on product releases and upcoming webinars through that venue as well. As always, we couldn't be here without our community. So thanks to everyone, and have a great afternoon. This is Odoo signing off.
Thanks, guys.